Actually, I worked on Ukraine in Stockholm at the ministry at the time. And before the football championships, like with any big event like that, when you will have thousands of people coming somewhere, you prepare for it with some trepidation. You know, there will be all these football fans coming somewhere. Okay, so we have to prepare for the worst. As it turned out, luckily enough, that was not needed, because it was a very positive experience, as far as I understand, for both sides. There are even some monuments here in Kiev to the Swedish football fans. There were thousands, literally thousands of them here. This was the base of the Swedish national team, and had a very, very positive experience. I think part of that, as you can see here in the background, of course, the most banal thing that is connecting us is the colors of our flags. Of course, as a football fan, maybe in particular, when everyone in the host country waving more or less the same colors. After the European Football Championships, I think this is kind of the next big opportunity probably for Ukraine, in a way, to show itself to Swedish people in general, and also to the fans coming here. And I think we do expect here in the embassy, we do expect lots of people coming here because of this big success of ABBA back in the 70s, when the artists that by taking part in the Eurovision, you can become a big international hit. More or less half of the population watches that and kind of takes part in voting for their favorites. Then the international one is slightly less popular, strangely enough. Usually go to the place also where the competition is. We are celebrating the 25th year now of diplomatic relations. It was in early January 1992 that Sweden and Ukraine established diplomatic relations, and Sweden recognized Ukraine as an independent country on the 19th of December in 1991. Sweden and Ukraine started development cooperation, Swedish support for reforms in Ukraine, already in 1995, in the middle of the 1990s. This is still ongoing. We have seen very much, to be sincere, ups and downs. There have been times when we have totally discontinued some programs because So with this perspective, I think I can say that, you know, the last years we have seen reforms on a scale that Ukraine has not seen since independence. We have a very, very active exchange of visits. 1/5 of all Swedish ministers in the current government have been to Ukraine. I've been here for only 4 months now, 5 months. Came in September last year. And November was a particularly busy month when we had the president of Ukraine visiting Stockholm, and the Swedish foreign minister came to Kiev. The visits, I think, were very fruitful. We have a very good understanding because we have this very intense exchange of visits on all different levels. Of course, the development cooperation helps a lot as well, because it means that many Swedish ministries, authorities, even municipalities. But what I wanted to say is that even though we have this intense and close cooperation, I think there is much potential to have more cooperation. It's actually our current level of trade is, but from a very low level. Swedish companies are among the biggest investors in countries like Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. And Ukraine would be a very kind of logical next step east, which means that it's actually at this point it's a very good idea to export from Ukraine to the EU. It's a bit more, the barriers are higher for exports from the EU to Ukraine at this point. We have tried to inform Ukrainian producers about opportunities to export to Sweden of foodstuff. There are also some big Swedish investments in that area. Of course, with the development of industry in Ukraine, also in these areas, I think there could be a great opportunity to import also more parts that would be used in Sweden to put together the final product. There is a huge opportunity, but I think one big problem is the lack of knowledge. We are not neighbors, but we are very close. Actually, if you fly, it takes the same time to go to Brussels from Stockholm as it takes to go to Kiev. But I think the mental distance is further. If you haven't been, for example, in a country, it's much easier that you start to see the country only through news, for example. And what is news? News is usually about some crisis, some problems. So if you haven't been, if you don't have your own opinion or can't compare what you see in the media with it's a huge country, well-educated people, beautiful cities you can visit. Ukrainians are very well informed about Sweden. It's quite easy to go there, 2.5 hours on a plane, and you will be in a very different country. Stockholm is a very interesting place to go for a city weekend. We have some very unique things you can see. You can see the Vasa Museum, which is a Navy ship which sank during his maiden voyage. It only managed to go a couple of 100 meters. Shipbuilding that you cannot see anywhere else in the world. Also, I think one thing which puts Stockholm apart from many other big capitals is that you get wild nature. It's, I think, very important for most Swedes to have this closeness to nature wherever you live. If you are a fan of Astrid Lindgren, the author of Pippi Longstocking and Emil and Ronja, and Carlson, of course, I should mention, probably the most famous of her creations. I like it a lot. Of course, it's different from the Swedish Carlson, looks different than he is in the Swedish one, which may explain sometimes the popularity. He's a bit quite nasty. Since I have two quite small kids myself, what I have seen mostly the last years is the things for kids. What I've seen mostly in Kiev is parks, playgrounds. I like to go swimming with my kids. I've had a very good time here. But I can tell you that my friends and relatives who have been here, they have been very positively impressed by Kiev. For architecture, just going to churches or monasteries. You know, for a city weekend, I think that takes you a long way. More in general, I've been also to places like Lviv and Odessa in the city center with the very busy life, all the restaurants and bars and musicians in the streets and beautiful parks. I think that's a place where I would be very happy to take friends or maybe my parents when they come here next time. There are some big investments in the IT area, both Ericsson and Sigma, big Swedish companies that are active here. And I think you have a big domestic market, you have well-educated people, not least you have well-educated engineers that are in big demand globally. Of course, this is something that has happened over a long period of time, this economic development. Actually, if you go back in time 100 years, Sweden was one of the poorest countries in Europe. A strong social policy, always the development of the welfare state. I think one important issue that I would like to mention here is the issue of gender equality, which is also something that Sweden is working on. Promoting globally. And why do we do that? We do that because it's our own experience that this has contributed to our own economic development, and it also contributes to a better, it's a question of rights, of course, human rights. There is a strong political understanding that this is not, that this doesn't make sense. There is no denying that reforms are happening, and very important reforms, including the 140 steps, visa liberalization, visa freedom with the European Union. That has been assessed by the European Commission as being fulfilled with results of reform, maybe also, well, maybe in particular with the economic situation. It's pushing the political elite to deliver reforms. So it's actually something to treasure, I think, this impatience. It's important that people care, and I think that's what we saw in 2014. This is something which puts Ukraine apart, and something that should be very much treasured by the political elite as a strong driving force, something for them to use.